Good evening, ladies and gents, and welcome to the latest CarpFix Live. The main purpose of the CarpFix Live is to do an interactive Q&A with yourself, so it's your chance to get your questions answered by us. Obviously, it can be about your own carp fishing, it can be about our content, or anything other carp fishing related. If we deem your questions good ones, we're going to give away a free tub of these handcraft pop-ups to each question that we really like. So get your questions in as soon as possible and we'll try and answer as many of them as we can. Going to kick off with a little chat about this evening's release, which is our 3 Eels film. Obviously getting really good content in the winter is always going to be difficult. Normally, quite often you'd see us targeting runs, water, day sessions, club, like little day tickets, just trying to scratch out a bite. But we had a really good shoot at Burners, was feeling pretty confident off the back of that. And Scotty's got some really good contacts over at CarpFix with Olivier and Nicole, and they've got a whole host of waters. And Scott's been doing a little bit of sort of preparation, diary planning for the year ahead, and it just came to our attention that nobody was booked on 3 Eels. Now, 3 Eels is a 60 to 70 acre gravel pit in France. It's one of the best commercial carp fisheries in Europe. The 3 carp over 80 pounds, numerous 70s. I think there's a 90 pounder in there, loads of big fish. And with no one on the lake, 800 carp present, we fancied our chances. There was a decent bit of mild weather forecast with an upcoming full moon, and we just decided to go for it. We had a few nights available, and like I say, with no one else there, we just decided we'd go, give it a go, and hope for the best. Aim a little bit higher, and it was tough going to start with. We arrived; it was pretty cold, and then the weather slowly warmed up while we were there, and it took a couple of 3 nights before we caught anything, so we're only there for 5 nights, I think. But we finally got on the fish, and we had a really nice time in the end. Completely different to your typical UK session. We had the vans parked behind us. We had a lovely social with Nicole and Olivier, some nice French wine,
cheese and wine. It was their leftovers.
Yeah, it tastes good for leftovers, if you ask me.
It was their leftovers, but it was very good.
But yeah. I was smashing single hook baits out to the oblivion, like full tilt into a massive crosswind, and then Scotty just flicks a little cell snowman out the side and catches the biggest fish of the trip.
On the last couple of days.
Again.
And then I can see you wondering, well, what am I doing wrong now?
I wasn't wondering what I was doing wrong. I was just thinking I could have been fishing over there myself. That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
I didn't really expect them to be there, to be honest. But... yeah, if anyone knows anything about 3 Eels, that you were saying it in a big carp. Was it a big carp story or something? Maybe it was you were saying like an unknown area or an area that gets disregarded.
Yes,
that top corner is still deep.
Yeah,
it's still a deep area,
plenty deep,
and they go up there for sanctuary.
Yeah,
and it wouldn't. Because we did we didn't really say it in the video, but we saw absolutely zero on the drone whilst I was flying around. Usually, you'd see them, see something, but saw nothing. And it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of them were up in that top corner, just because they're quite steep margins there. Do you think they shelter in the deep margins? Because that's what I think they were doing, just buried down. And
obviously the water's warming from the surface because it's been cold. You've got mild winds blowing in, and the top layer of the water is what is warming up. And when those winds came in, it wasn't like there was sun on the back of it. It came in, it was cloudy or mild. So the warm water's pushing down to that end. And right at the end of the session, we saw or heard, saw a couple, heard more on the last evening. It was the night of the hurricane, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Because it was the night before the hurricane.
Yeah.
That was because the hurricane happened while we were on the way home, didn't it?
Yes.
So we packed up.
It was before, yeah.
It was just about to kick off. We just started to see fish. We just started to catch, but obviously it's we done our time. We had to get back. Our van was going sideways on the motorway, and the brake kept kicking in. Didn't it? Again, like the ABS kept kicking in when the wheels were like lifting off the ground slightly. It's like,
that wasn't good.
But so have we got any questions yet, Scotty?
Yes, we have. Go straight into the questions. Yeah, like Pecky said, if you have a question and we choose it randomly, we'll just do it randomly. We've got some handcraft hook baits to give away, so we'll keep notes of names.
The new deep sea ones.
Yeah, there's some nice ones there. So we'll pick out some names, and you might win a tub, depending on if Pecky decides to say.
Well, these are just leftovers.
No, they're not.
I've taken the rest.
We got some scent. We've got quite a few tubs. Got more than 5 anyway. Anyway, let's go. Timothy Robinson. Late spring weather tactics. How much does the weather affect fishing at this time of year?
Well, I think it's like on the tipping point at the moment. We've just filmed 3 consecutive weeks at Bayswater. The first week, freezing cold, cloudy. Didn't see anything really, not much jumping, but caught. And then over the last 2 weeks, it's warmed up, like particularly this week, and the activity levels from week 1 to week 3 were immensely different. And all the fish we caught in the first week were on low zig rigs. Didn't catch anything on the bottom, and then I feel that this week is like the turning point where the fish have really sort of they're looking for food now. So they're not only just getting around the lake, having a little wander. They're now starting to eat, and the activity levels this week were really good. So tactics, back end of April, still don't neglect the zigs, especially if they're showing over deep water where you don't anticipate they're right down on the bottom. Island margins, brilliant area to be targeting. Reed beds, they love reed beds. Late April, early May, they love reed beds. So if you've got dense reed beds with like pools inside them, it's literally almost guaranteed. If there's big reed beds with pools inside, they love that. Old lily beds, anything where the sun is really important at this time of year. So don't neglect the shallow water, don't neglect the zigs, island margins. But if it is overcast and it is blowing a hoolie, they will feed in the bottom still as well. So, it's absolute. We're going into prime time now. April is probably nearly as good as it gets, whereas May is as good as it gets. So the good times are coming.
Cool. Liam Banks has asked, Darrell, when you're dropping rigs from a bait boat, how do you stop the lead swinging away from the bait being dropped?
Good question. So if you were to take it out onto a clip or pull the hopper doors when the line is too tight, you're correct in thinking that, especially in any depth of water, the lead will quickly swing away from the boat and land too far away. My preferred tactic is I try and drop on like what I would call a slack line that isn't going to allow the lead to get to the bottom before the line tightens up. So I slacken off once I'm happy with where it is, but I slacken to a point where I expect, as the lead's dropping through the water, for the water tension to catch up with the lead, and then at the last second it sort of tightens up and goes dunk, dunk, so it has swung back a tiny bit, leaving the rig hopefully on the near edge of the bait but not too far away. So you have to practice in different depths of water of how slack you want the line to be, and also use a big lead. And if you do feel the lead tighten up a bit quickly, like you can feel it descending, follow with the rod tip rather than hold it and let the lead swing back towards you. Go with it because it will make the lead drop quicker.
Good tips.
Good, and that's a quick. Let's have a tower pop up for that, lads.
Okay, that was Liam, wasn't it? Liam Banks. Okay, Mincy 22. If you could fish 20 years ago with what you know now, or 20 years in the future, if you could, would you fish 20 years ago with what you know now, or 20 years in the future?
20 years ago with what I know now.
Yeah, why?
Because I'd just turn up with all the highest grade tech, bait edges, knowing waters that were going to come good, catching the special old ones, just be like sending like a Terminator back to the buffet. Wasn't it? Would. If you had all the info, all the techers, all the knowledge, they'd be throwing potatoes around, and you'd be out there
killing it. Right, Josh, Darrell, what's your opinion on raking spots? My syndicate has a list of pondweed which have raked and spoms with particle and boilie. So, what's your opinion on raking spots?
It's not something I've done a lot of. I've done more raking in the margins to get my lines in, or raking to get better line lay. I have done a little bit of raking in the past. Never been like a mega productive thing for me. But yeah, I tend to like clear passageways for my line if I think the weed in the margins or on the route to the spot is affecting line lay. So yeah, not something I do a lot of.
Cool. Yeah, excuse us. We've both got, so we haven't got the virus. I've done tests, but we've both got really terrible coughs at the moment.
Scott.
Yeah.
Contaminated me.
There's a member here. You haven't fully registered your account. You've got an account, but you haven't put your details in. This is your question. So if you're still here, if you go on to your app and then you can create an account, and I'll see all of your like details with your name. At the moment, it's just one of the generic emails we assign to you. Your question is, do you enjoy taking the Batman role when filming for CarpFix? Seems as though you're so used to being Robin when filmed for Corda.
I wouldn't say I enjoy it or like it any less. Obviously there's more pressure when it's when you're playing Batman, especially when I'm fishing on my own. It all rests on me catching something. Whereas obviously when we go out, two people filming, whether you're the lead guy or the second guy, there's two. Like if you both blank, it was obviously fishing hard. You didn't quite get it right. But when you go on your own, it definitely. I feel more pressure being on my own than I do with fishing alongside someone. I wouldn't say I'm overly competitive, so I'm not worried about whether I catch or the other person catches on the shoots. It's just if we go try and get a film. Whereas like when I'm on my own, it's like it's all on me. It's all on me. Yeah.
Right. Let's have another one. James Mansell, fishing a farm res with steep sides at the moment. It goes down to 20 foot, 2 rod lengths out. Any advice on baiting to sit on the sides?
2 rod lengths. It goes from in 2 rod lengths goes
straight
to 20 foot. That is pretty steep. If 2 rod lengths out, it's 20 foot deep, and it's not very deep in the margin. That is pretty steep. Obviously, you could fish half boilies. Sweet corn's unlikely to roll down, that sort of stuff. Boilie crumb. Your tigers, you're probably better off chopping them up as well as your boilies. But if you're talking about now, like this time of year, I would be fishing right at the top of the shelf, right at the top along the margins. Also zigs. 20. I wouldn't want to be ideally fishing at the bottom of a shelf in 20 foot in May, which is coming up very shortly, April, May. So I'd be looking to fish at the top of the shelf, or at least high on the shelf.
Cool. Sorry, I'm just trying to do a million things at once.
That's you.
Bradley Hunt, evening. If you could only fish one rig and bait in the spring, what would it be and why?
Only one rig and bait. It'd probably be boilies, because if it could only be one, because obviously they're quite nuisance fish proof. But I wouldn't want to just use one. You've got to use what's right for the situation. I'm not saying you need 1,000,001 different rigs in your armoury, but yeah, just have a few favourites. At the moment, I fish my stiff hinge rig for pop-ups. That's one of my favourites. I was using it on the aquarium film, using it on the burners film. That rig's really, really good like that. Combi multi-rig, as you've seen me use at Farlow's last year. I've used that so many times, so many places. That's my favourite for fishing wafters. And then obviously zig rigs. I'm probably only using four or so rigs. But yeah, your rig should be designed to present your bait, your chosen bait, over the substrate that you're fishing over in the best way. So, yeah, it's a question. It's not one rig, one bait. It's you got to use the right tool for the job.
Cool. Lee Johnson has asked, what's the ideal rig for your Banoffee prototype pop-ups?
Well, they're very, very versatile, those pop-ups. You could use them on a Ronnie rig. You could use them on a stiff hinge rig. You could use them on any pop-up rig. You could use them as a big snowman rig. I reckon you might even get away with if you fished a 15mm bottom bait and a 15mm pop-up, probably make a good snowman. Or you could definitely cut them down and make a good snowman if the pop-up was too buoyant. But yeah, and they're obviously 15mm, so not really small. So the more robust, sort of more obvious pop-up rigs like your stiff hinge, like your chod, like your Ronnie rig, would be ideal.
Cool. Caitlin 93 has asked, what is your biggest superstition while on the bank that has become a religion? Do you have any superstitions?
Hook sharpness.
Well,
just like absolute. It's not superstition, but it's like if I didn't have to check my hooks when I was fishing, it would make my life 100 times better. You know, literally, I waste half my life pricking myself and looking for a magnifying glass of hooks in between casts. Can't get into any form of rhythm for paranoia about it not being in absolute tip-top shape. If you look at my thumb, I don't know where you can see that, but it's like I've just been fishing for 3 weeks in a row, and I've got like almost like black scar tissue all running down the side of my thumb where I've been stabbing myself like over and over and over again. So yeah, that's I'm fastidious about hook sharpness. But as far as what was the word he used? Superstition.
Yeah.
No, I'm not overly.
Yeah, like Dan at Corder, he used to have that shark, didn't he?
Yeah.
And now he doesn't have the shark anymore. There was a story behind it, wasn't there? But I forget. Yeah. But you don't have anything like that. No. Or Spooner has the monkey.
Yeah.
Lee has asked, Darrell had a tadpole hatch last week on my syndicate. I thought this was an ideal time for a black zig after seeing numerous fish near the surface but not a touch. Where am I going wrong?
Well, I've been using black zigs a lot in the last 3 trips out on the bank. Black fox zigger liners with size 6 wide gapes. I would say it all depends on the depth of the lake, but 3 to 5 foot down is very good if it's fair conditions, sunny, fairly pleasant conditions. If it's a bit rougher, overcast, 6-7 feet down, that obviously you can go outside of that, but I don't think you go far wrong, especially now. 3 to 5 foot down when it's nice conditions, and when it's rough, 6-7 feet down.
Cool. Matthew Williams, Darrell, when tackling a new venue with no showing fish, etc., would you go with a variety of tactics, so zig, margin, and single hook baits, etc.?
Well, the freels, was it for this time of year?
I'm going to guess so. He doesn't say, but
sorry, read it to me one more time.
So, when tackling a new venue with no showing fish, would you go with a variety of tactics?
Well, that is a question we almost get every single month. Is what do you do when there's nothing showing? That is quite a common question. But tactics-wise, my tactics are always the same. If I don't know the venue, it's like it's seek, look for fish, try and fish pop-ups to where they are, go in lightly with the bait, and just try and be on fish as much as possible. Single pop-up's brilliant tactic, easy to eat food, sweet corn, maggots, that sort of stuff. Light scattering of 10mm boilies can be really good, or 15mm boilies around the pop-up. But yeah, just minimal fishing where they are. That's usually my go-to when I don't know what I'm doing.
Cool. Matthew Jones, commercial waters. Do you start singles, mesh bags before adding more bait?
Depends on the time of year and the type of venue. If I was going to Gigantica in prime time, which is a commercial venue in France, I would set my stall out from day one. I'd put the marker float out, find my spots, put out the bait, the amount of bait that I wanted to put out, and be set, because I wouldn't want to be plumbing and leading throughout the week. I want to sort of, a lot of casting goes on those busy commercial lakes. So in that sort of situation, I do like to set my stall out. But if I don't know the lake very well, I'm a very cautious angler. I very rarely bait and wait unless I know. If I've good experience, then I might bait and wait. But if I don't, how can you commit to something if you don't know if it's any good? So I always err on the side of caution when I'm unsure.
Good. Oliver Osborne, evening lads. Any idea how to approach a low stock lake that gets fished pretty often? My local lake is one I want to crack, but seems very busy.
Yeah, well, obviously that's the nature of UK carp fishing for big carp. The bigger the prize is, the more likely you'll be competing against other anglers. The more anglers, the more difficult, the more educated the fish have become. The more line shy, more lead shy, more bait shy that the fish in the venue will be. But it's always the same. You have to, if you want to compete against other anglers, you have to try harder than them, or just come at absolute prime time. Like the harder the lake, the more important your timing is. So if it's a difficult lake, really make the effort to get there as much as you can during May, because they do throw the caution to the wind just prior to spawning. My top tips would be, really, if you commit to it, set your calendar out as much time as you've got, put as much effort as you can into locating the fish, and just try and be down. When you're down the lake regular, then you're keeping in touch with the movements of the fish. If you've got an idea of where they might like to be, you're more likely to be looking in the right areas. So, really put the effort into your location, get in there as much as you can, and on those difficult lakes, that's the key.
Cool. This is another one from Mincy. Near me, there is a syndicate water, but it is completely full of weed, and I have never seen many people fishing it over the years. Should I give it a go with strong tackle, or try clearing as much of the weed as possible? Not joined it yet, but the mystery is pulling me.
Well, I would just fish with really strong tackle, or try to fish with strong tackle all of the time anyway. But on those really weedy lakes, you could spend a few days leading. Like when in the heat of the day, when you're not expecting to catch, it can pay to walk around those weedy lakes with a leading rod, like your marker rod, without the marker float on, with your distance sticks. Get around the lake, have a few casts and a few swims, write down the wraps where you find the clear spots into your telephone, because that disturbance that you're making then is like money in the bank for later. So that's like the weedy lakes are all about presentation. Whether you're going to be presenting on top of the weed or in and around the weed beds, that is the key to weedy lakes, is your presentation.
Cool. John Long is asked, regarding depths, is there a limit to how deep you would fish, and does that depend on the seasons?
Depends on the seasons. It depends on how deep it is for the lake concerned. The deepest I've personally caught fish on the bottom is 42 feet, and that is in a lake where it went down to 65 in places, but on average 55. So it wasn't right in the bottom, but it was still bloody deep, and I caught them that deep. I think it was December, January time. But for the most part, as a general rule, not obviously outside, there's no rules in carp fishing. Carp do strange things sometimes, but a lot of the time early in the year, from the new year on, January, February, March, going up to May, the fish are shallow because the water's warming up. Once the water is fully mixed, fully a good temperature, after spawning, the fish are more likely to go deeper. I've caught them at Gigantica in 30 degrees. In August on the bottom in the middle of the afternoon. Like you'd think in the UK, you'd think it's 30 degrees, they'd be swimming around on the surface, but they weren't. They were on the bottom, absolutely ploughing bait. So yes, I think in the summer, when it gets really hot, sometimes the fish get away from it by get away from the sun. Especially not so much in England, because it never really gets that hot, but definitely the more I fish abroad. I've done it in Italy, I've seen it in Germany, I've seen it in France, where like scorching temperatures. The fish are down 30 feet, 10 metres. They're feeding in 10 metres in scorching heat, which was eye-opening for me. But generally early part of the year, you're fishing shallow. And generally as the year goes on, I've noticed, especially in the UK, that the fish go deeper. On lakes where, let's say the deepest area in your lake is 20 foot, but most of it's 10. That 20-foot area might not produce a single fish until you get into October, November, December time. And an area that hasn't done a fish all year can suddenly be the best area in the lake. So, shallow early part of the year as a general rule, and going deeper as the season goes on.
Nice. Matthew Wheeler, tiger nuts are banned at my water.
They must be good.
Can you explain your edge for soaking boilies in tiger nut water? How many tigers would you need to soak, say, 10 kilos of boilies?
That's a good question. Give him some time.
Matthew Wheeler.
He's listening.
I have also given some to Oliver Osborne.
Okay, so how many have we done? We've done 3
tubs? We've done 3, yeah.
That's fine.
I mean,
we can do a couple more.
Yeah, we've got quite a few, so keep your questions coming in.
Yeah. Right, okay, so if you imagine you were doing it like for like, so if you had 3 kilos of boilies that you wanted to soak, you could do the equivalent of tigers. So you could boil 3 kilos of tigers, making sure that when you're simmering them, that the water level never goes too low. Really, you want to overfill. You want to be boiling them in too much water, because that way, once you've finished boiling them, like imagine you want enough at the end so that your tigers are still full of liquid up to the top, and you've got same enough liquid to cover the 3 kilos of boilies. So you're double doing the water. Just keep an eye on it as it's boiling so that it doesn't simmer down too low. Obviously, keep mixing the water if you have to add extra water. And although it will just seem like plain water at the time, that water is absolutely full of the sugars from the tigers. And I've done very well on lakes where tiger nuts are banned, just purely by using the water from the tigers, soaked onto boilage. No one would ever know. It's almost scentless. After they've been in the water 24 hours to set that period when they've been in the water, 24 hours onwards to sort of 72 hours, 4 days worth. You look at that's Optimus Prime.
Optimus Prime.
Deadly.
Toby Keating, how do carp recognise danger?
Well, they're just a creature, aren't they? They're very cautious. They're just naturally. What's the word I'm looking for?
They're like on edge, aren't they? I feel like they're on edge.
Yeah, well, they're not predators. I just feel like you just think about what carp do, right? If the water's clear, they seek sanctuary. They cover, like hide. When there's people casting, they move away. When there's an out of bounds area with no activity on it, they go there. It's just a natural thing. They're just wild creatures trying to seek sanctuary and peace, and they want to feel safe. Ultimately that's what they want.
They do. Matthew, hello lads. What is your go-to rig and bait for most venues?
Well, the standards, my favourites that I've always got, my tiger nuts and my boilies. If the nuisance fish aren't too leery, then I use sweet corn and maggots. Sometimes a bit of hemp, sometimes a bit of pellet. Standard stuff. I'm not using any like secret bait. Maggots and casters are like two of the very, very. They're just so attractive. Fish that will ignore boilies can sometimes just drop instantly on maggots and casters. But on the negative side, so will the bream. And if you've got a lot of bream in the lake, a lot of roach, then you could be causing yourself a lot of drama. So you're just the standard things really: boilies, tigers, sweet corn, hemp, maggots and casters. There's my usual go-tos.
Cool. When fishing stiff hinge rigs, would you say that a longer hinge section with larger, say, 20 to 20 millimeter pop-ups tend to single out some of the bigger fish?
Literally can't remember the last time I used a 20mm pop-up or even an 18mm pop-up. It's just like almost unheard of. but at the same time, doesn't mean that they're not any good, because I've caught fish out the quarry years when I was like 17 on 20mm pop-ups. I caught fish when I was like 14, 15, like small commons, like 15-pounders, and like single-figure commons on 18mm Rod Hutchinson, chocolate malt and Scopex. But now, for me, like a 15, 16mm pop-up is the biggest that I ever use. You know, I don't know why. I don't think using a bigger one would single out bigger fish necessarily. And I just try to pop-ups. I just try to be a little bit more subtle than that with. Yeah.
Cool. Let's have a little chat about the old community page, and we'll do the draw.
Oh yeah.
So there's have you been on there recently?
Not recently, no.
Our members catch some nice fish.
Well,
But there's a little scroll through there. Look, even people put in shots of a lead there with bloodworm on it. But you get people's setups now and things like that, which is nice. That doesn't just have to be fish.
Yeah.
But look, there's some really nice fish on there. So basically every month we in partnership with Johnson Ross, we do a £50 voucher, which
monthly.
we do it every month,
Yeah.
and then at the end next February we'll do a £100 voucher for everyone that's entered. So if you put a post on the community page on the app, just like the ones that I'm scrolling through here, you can put multiple pictures. So Joey here has put 2 pictures on there. You can see one of both sides of the fish. But we really like looking at these, and there's some really, really, all these fish are really nice. And look at that one there.
Yeah.
No records of this fish ever being caught. Talks it could be a mid-50, close to 60. But yeah, if you
Drop me a pin.
put a picture on here, then you'll get entered for a £50 voucher. So, do you want to do the draw?
Press the button.
Let me go onto here.
Tap to draw.
Right, press the tap to draw button,
So
mate.
this is for a £50 voucher.
So this is for last month's entries. So Josh Capelin, I'll screenshot your name. You've won a £50 voucher
Well done.
for Johnson Ross,
Lovely times.
just for posting a picture.
Yeah. That's good.
It's all right, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's go back to the questions. John Slate, when fishing with braided mainline on gin clear water, would you use a fluorocarbon leader so the business end is well hidden? Oh, lost it. Hold on. Well hidden, or would you opt for a lead core leader and not worry about spooking fish?
It depends how strong my tackle needed to be. I do like the idea of, in crystal clear water, having a little fluorocarbon leader on the end. Not like a rod length of line. I'm talking like 5 feet, like 4 or 5 feet, like a long lead core leader, the equivalent of, just so you got that invisibleness down to the lead. But at the same time, if it needed to be bomb proof, I would probably just go braid to braid and just hope for it to be pinned down on the bottom. Like when we fish weighs in, braided mainline to lead core leaders. Because it was fishing across the snags, relatively clear water. But on other occasions, I remember when I caught the Black Mirror in Holland, I was fishing, wasn't overly clear, but I fished with fluorocarbon leader in the same way because I knew it wasn't hit and hold fishing. But yeah, if it's not hit and hold, I would fish with a 4 or 5 foot fluorocarbon leader.
Cool. We had one about hooks.
Hooks are one of my favourite topics.
There we go. Tom Young. Hi, Darrell. Hope you're well. I know you love a sharpened hook. How many times do you use the same hook once you've caught a fish? That's it.
Literally never. Like,
have you ever done it?
Of course. Like you've fished, you've been out with Tom Maker loads of times. He uses the hook all the time, doesn't he?
All the time, yeah.
The thing is, like, I sharpen my hooks so much and so fine that they do not survive. If I miscast, I go back into the bivvy after my miscast to recheck my hook point through the magnifying glass. Because when they're as fine as I make them, they only have to brush something, like literally brush something. And if I put the rod in the rest and sink the line, once that line is sunk, there's no way of retrieving that rig from the lake bed without ruining it. I don't even look. I know it's not going to be any good. I don't ever try to reuse them because they're never any good. You know, it's if you want to reuse hooks, then you don't want to be sharpening them, and you want to be using one straight from the packet. And even then, you still need to check them, in my opinion.
Cool. Tom Young.
Give him a pot.
Yeah. Tom Young. So we've got one from Stephen Bond. Pecky, I'm launching 35 plus wraps with a multi-rig, fished with a stiff boom, flexible braid hook loop. The putty balances my wafter perfect. When I change the bait to a snowman, I experience tangles. Help.
Well, obviously I haven't got your rig in front of me to pull the bones out of it as such. The biggest thing that I've seen when people are copying the combi multi-rig that I've shown is that everyone seems to swap the braided section for whatever braid they've got in their box, and they seem to think that you want the most supple one. Obviously, the more supple the braid that you choose, the more prone it is to tangling, and that is why I use the core of the dark matte coated braid. It's not convenient because you've got to strip the coating off it, but that braid in there is much stiffer. It's much less prone to tangling, and the length of your braided section is vitally important. You know, if it's too long, it's more likely to tangle, and it's also much more likely to tangle if you're fishing it on a helicopter system. If you fish it on a lead core system with anti-tangle tubing, you know that will probably solve your problem straight away. But the next thing I'd look at is the stiffness of the braid. You want if you're getting tangles, a stiffer braid will help.
Cool. Let's have a look. Robert Chandler. We don't see you surface fishing much or talking about it. Nothing like a good dog biscuit, but how do you go about it? When's the last time you did surface fishing?
I literally cannot remember. I remember I filmed at Leia with Elliot Gray a long time ago now. Leia's a great surface venue. I don't think I've ever caught a 40-pounder off the top. I can't.
My PB, just going off topic. 20. No, my old PB, was £27 caught off the top.
Yeah.
In Yorkshire.
That's a big fish for Yorkshire.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I've caught a 38 off the top for sure. I can't remember ever catching a 40. But the truth is, I don't tend to do a lot of fishing in the summer on the sort of venue. You know, I do a lot of European fishing through the summer, filming, recorder and CarpFix. And I haven't done it much in recent years. We are planning, we've talked about recently about doing this summer, doing some floater sessions, rather than like 48-hour films. Like we'll go out and film a series of evenings, like short session, getting your CarpFix on a limited time frame in the summertime. Because, like I say, I haven't caught off the top for years. I think it would be real enjoyable, enjoyable content to make. And yeah, I have to have a
There's the anticipation as well of it coming up. Sometimes they just shy away. Sometimes they take it.
Yeah.
Sometimes you strike too early.
Oh yeah,
So it's always it is always a good watch.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I definitely need to practice before we go out and film.
No, we're just going.
I don't want to make a fool of myself. It's almost like I can't remember what to do.
Right. Let's have a look. I had one here. Joey Thomas. Hi. Evening, fellas. Would you use zigs in a lake that average 5 foot? And if so, what sort of length would you use?
I think if the lake's 5 foot and you think the fish are moving through the layers and not taking your bait, I don't think you go far wrong fishing smack bang in the middle. A little 2.5 footer in 5 foot. It's like if the fish are, let's say the fish is a foot off the bottom, then the zig is only 18 inches above it, perfect to move on to. I think there's a common misconception with zig rigs that the fish come down onto them, and I actually now believe that they're at the right level or the fish come up onto them, because I think the fish can see them, better by looking up onto them. So I think 2.5 foot would be a great starting point in 5 feet.
Cool. Tony. Hi Darrell and Scott, both opinions on this. I'm on a small lake with deep margins. It's pretty busy with anglers baiting very heavily. Do you join them? How would you go about baiting spots?
if you're deep in the margins and you've got like natural carp houses, like big overhanging trees, reed beds, all of that sort of stuff, then the fish have got no reason not to come in, especially at this time of year. If you're going to, I would err on the side of caution, pre-baiting heavily until middle of May. Early May can still be cool. I would definitely go easy on the bait until the middle of May. Post-spawning, yep, absolutely, you can lever it in, but it depends on how many fish are in the lake, what's the nuisance fish situation, how many birds are going to get it, but yeah, a couple of 3 kilos is a lot of bait, and if you're doing that a couple of times a week, I think that's enough.
I personally think that if the other anglers are catching, doing what they're doing, putting bait in, then just follow suit.
Yeah.
But also, if it's deep in the margins, like you say, they're the areas that you can just stay nice and quiet, out of the way.
Yeah.
Little plop in the margin and just catch fish.
Yeah.
Brandon Sunter, 90-acre big pit. It's got 50 fish. They don't show themselves. How would you approach it?
They do show themselves. They do.
Listen.
Listen, that is a common misconception. I've been to lakes where they show less than others, but I've never been anywhere where they don't show at all. You're looking at the right times. Obviously, 90 acres, 50 fish, it's going to be difficult. That's a proper, serious venue. 50 carp in 90 acres, that's very, very serious. And when I say it's very serious, I wouldn't dream of tackling somewhere like that unless it was absolute peak time of year, April, May, summertime. You on those low stock big lakes, you need to be looking hard. Fishing without sightings is almost pointless, or especially if you don't know where they like to get. I would say it's pointless. If you know a bit about the lake, then it's not pointless. But yeah, I would bet my bottom dollar that if you're looking at first light on a big open swim in mid-April to mid-May, then I would see something.
Cool. Barry Jarvis, nice tan, Mr. Peck.
Oui. Been on a bit of a sunfest, haven't I? I went to Spain.
You have, yeah.
Spain for 3 weeks, 2 weeks with Corda, 1 week with CarpFix. Came directly home from that and got 3 weeks on a Bayswater campaign. I've just been absolutely sunbathed.
It's Barry's birthday. He's watching from his pit.
Right, he gets to have a pop up. Come on
Barry.
then, Barry. Happy birthday,
Barry,
mate.
All right, Barry Jarvis. So Barry has actually asked a question. Have you ever used black tigers?
No.
Massive cray and bird issues and trying to avoid them. Have you got any...
My mates have used black tigers and they rate them quite highly. It's not something that I've ever tried. They always look a bit ugly to me, but they do work. My mates have used them, like I say. But I think they're more like, depending on the colour of your lake bed, if you're fishing somewhere silty, they might actually blend in quite well. But if you're fishing on somewhere quite clear, clay or gravel or something like that, a black one probably stand out quite strongly. So, tigers are great. If tigers are my go-to a lot of the time, and when the birds are a nuisance, I quite often fish them as singles during the day. Don't underestimate how attractive a single tiger nut is, because I'm sure the fish can pick up on the sweetness of them in the water. I'm certain of it. They pick up on it really well, and they're quite minimal. And then if you're gonna, it's quite often I like to put a little bit round it on dark. So whether that be 2 spoms, 2 spoms like with a few tigers in, if you can get them accurate, or if they're fishing close in, 15 tigers round the rod is enough. Just enough to generate a little bit of interest more than a single.
Cool. How would you... This Dan Bown or Bone. How would you target deep pits where zigs are banned, especially at this time of year where the fish are up in the layers and out in the middle?
Well, there's not a lot you can do about that. If you can't use zigs and the fish are out in the middle, up off the bottom, you can sit underneath them and hope for a straggler.
Use a float.
You could use a float, big drifter.
Yeah,
big pipe vein with a couple of boilies under it. You laugh, but I've heard someone done that before in court. The other thing is to just fish to the closest point in the edge. If they're way out in the middle, then obviously that's not relevant. But Essex Manor, for example, we used to use zigs there, but it was deep in the spring, 25 foot, and they used to be sitting out in the middle all the time. But if you watch them from the tree, they'd slowly, they would sneak into the edges, and watching where they do come to the edges, where they run ground in the correct depth can be very important. So, I can't solve it if they're not coming in for you, because I could say, oh yeah, spot out a load of hemp and pellet or whatever to get the oils coming up through the layers to pull them down. But if they really are up in the water and want to be up in it because of the temperature, then no amount of oily goodness is not going to pull them down, especially in spring.
Yeah. Gary Truby, do you think carp know the weather coming in, and
That's a good question.
And they're for feed or don't feed, and therefore feed or don't feed?
Like, when good conditions come in, like wind change and stuff, it's almost like they arrive like immediately, or they were already there. So maybe there's something. I don't know if they could. How would they know? I don't understand how they would know. But I think they are very in tune with a change, and they can almost be waiting for a change. They can be desperate for a change. If it's been stiflingly hot, no ripple on the lake, low oxygen in the water, might be causing them not to feed because the oxygen levels aren't good enough. They're just feeling a bit tired because they're not getting the oxygen that they want, and then suddenly you get a ripple on the lake, and it instantly spurs on a feeding spell because the conditions for them are better. So I would say, I don't think they know. Come on, they ain't got weathermen like us.
I mean, they might do. James Burke. Evening, gents. Recently been winding in and finding rigs tangle. Lost all confidence. It's presenting. Changed to a stiffer setup. But any tips for the cast to help eliminate tangles?
Well, really, you can't. I occasionally reel in a tangled rig, occasionally. But if it's happening with any sort of consistency, then there's a problem, and something needs to change immediately because life's short. You're only sitting behind tangled rigs. But things that you can do with regard to casting is if you're fishing to a clip, you want to hit the clip with a nice smooth amount of force. So a nice smooth cast, anticipating the clip, feathering it. Cushioning in on the clip, standing when you hit the clip, and if you can stay in connection with the lead as it's going forward, by moving the rod like that. Obviously, the boilies then, or the bait's ahead of the lead, and it all sort of goes into the water nice. So, hitting the clip smoothly, not letting it bullet in, feeling it down. They're things you can do to help prevent tangles. But ultimately, your rig needs to not tangle in the first place. They can if on a bad unlucky cast, crazy things snap, or you think, how on earth has I've had a stiff hinge rig tangle with the eye of the hook's gone through the eye of the lead? Rare as rocking horse, but it can happen. But like I say, if you're getting it consistently happen, then you need to change something because something's wrong. Basically, something's wrong.
Yeah. Right, we've got one from John. Why do you use size 4 hooks on your Ronnies but only size 8 hooks on your Chods and hinge stiffs in the Corda pop-up film?
Right, well, things have evolved. When I filmed that Corda pop-up masterclass, it'd been a little while since I'd used stiff hinge, and I'd always used it with a size 8, always done that. And when I'd fished with Ronnie rigs, which is more in recent times, I fished them with a size 4 wide gape X. But if you watch the Corda, I think in tackle, where I'm fishing with Oscar at Cables Lake, I actually start fishing hinge stiff rigs there. That's the first time I ever do it with size 4 wide gape X's. I had a really good session. Didn't lose. I think I lost one fishing hit and hole fishing to reeds, and it was the confidence that I gained fishing in that session that prompted me to then use it at the aquarium, to use it at burners, and that my stiff hinge now is always the same at the moment. It's a size 4 wide gape X, and that's what I would use on my spinners. And I tend to use a size 6 wide gape X on my combi multi rigs at the moment.
Cool. Dan Full. As us fishing in pressured water, would you try to get an area going or look to be mobile, like leads, etc.? Getting spots going makes me paranoid. People will notice and jump on.
Yeah, well, yeah. You know, obviously I do a lot of one-off sessions to lakes because I do a lot of filming for my work. But when I was a campaign angler, as in when I started on a lake, generally the start of the season would be beginning of April when the tickets changed hand, and I would fish through the year. And my general technique is to fish very opportunist, very minimal when I don't know what I'm doing. Once a few sessions have come together, I start to learn spots where the fish like to go in certain conditions, get past spawning. I then start to apply bait. Still, don't often pre-bait. It will take quite a lot for me to start pre-baiting, as in I would have to see an opportunity, as in like people aren't seeing this, people aren't fishing here. I think there's a good chance to get bait in here. It's not going to get, because the pre-baiting, for it to work really well, it needs to be left unmolested, needs to be rested, not have lines through it all the time. So yeah, pre-baiting in an ideal world is, yeah, it's great, you know, but on pressured venues, it's very hard to not. Quite often, you've got people on your back waiting to go in the swim when you leave, and you can't start throwing bait in a swim that someone's about to go into. So, yes, pre-baiting for me is at its very best post spawning. You know, when they're really hungry, June, July, August, and into September. That's when pre-baiting for me, I think about doing it the most. And if I think I can get away with it without it being fished, I'll go quite heavy. I remember fishing in Peterborough and putting 60 kilos out on a Thursday, bit mixed, maybe 20 kilo boilies, loads of particles, and then coming back on the Sunday. So it had like Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night rested, and then coming back and slinging on top of it. And it's amazing how much fish will eat if they don't get caught. Because what normally happens, fish come down to your spot, start feeding, eventually one hangs itself on the rig, fish spook, and they go away. But if there's no rig there, they start feeding, they go away, find other fish, they come back, start feeding, and the party just escalates and escalates. It's only the lines and the hooks that stop the party really getting started.
Cool. Dan, we'll give you a pot of... are they all pop-ups? I don't know if they are.
There's some wafters and some bits and pieces.
We'll give you a pot anyway. Let's have a little look here. We had one. Carlos, is it possible to fish adjustable zigs with fluorocarbon mainline?
I think it's probably possible at shortish range. Not ideal. I can't remember actually doing it myself. I would say probably not best advised, but not impossible.
Yeah. John, how do you manage with 3 kids? I've got one and he drives me insane.
Well, I spend a lot of time on the bank. It's the house is a war zone like that. I'm like a human climbing frame when I get home because obviously I'm exotic meat. I turn up and they haven't seen me for a while, and they all want a slice of daddy. But it's pretty hairy at my house.
Yeah. Kenton, what do you prefer to balance a boilie? Piece of cork stick or foam stick?
I prefer foam because it's much easier to get the boilie needle through the foam without stabbing yourself. It's do you know what I mean? When you go through the cork, it just wants to come flying out.
You don't know when it's going to go through.
It's like suddenly comes through, doesn't it? You can slip the needle through the foam without too much trouble.
Yeah.
And quite often when you put the needle through the cork, it blows the back end of it out.
Yeah.
Pops it out. I quite often use that Fox Zig foam inside tiger nuts, inside boilies. It's one of my favourites.
Cool. Oliver, evening lads, any tips for a lake which is low stock but seems to be very busy all of the time? Can't really pre-bait and you can only book a swim.
You can only book swims? Oh mate, that's the end of the world as you know it. If it's low stock and hard, location is everything. And if it was that obvious where the fish were, some lakes are very, very swimmy. There's a very obvious swim, like an end peg with an out of bounds, an end peg with an island, end peg with fish into a reed bed. If it's that obvious, book that swim. But if it isn't and it's hard, it's low stock, then you just literally, it's like lottery fishing. If you have to book the swim, they're either there or they're not. If it's hard, low stock, minimal bait, location will be key.
Yeah. Sean, hi guys, wondering what's your thoughts are on barbed versus barbless. What, in your opinion, is better option for fish safety?
If you have a commercial fishery, like a day ticket lake, that's obviously you're open to all levels of angling, and as much as all the information is available to all, just people, not everyone is a good angler. There's a lot of inexperienced anglers, and in that situation, I think the commercial fisheries are probably correct to have barbless hooks, because the chances of fish towing tackle are more high. Like unsafe rigs, cracked off rigs, snapped off rigs in trees, fish can definitely get off of barbless hooks easier. That's a fact. But if you've got a syndicate with a good level of angling ability, and it's weedy and stuff, I think it's probably beneficial to have barbed hooks for the benefit of the anglers. But I would say, like people say, barbless hooks slide in the fish's mouth. I don't necessarily agree with that, and I just think that bad angling can lead to fish being tethered, and if fish are going to get tethered, then they're better off getting tethered on the barbless. That's what I'll say.
Yeah. Adam Walsh. Hi, Darrell. Fishing a 12-acre gravel lake. Fishing well at the mo, but would you use a lead clip setup on gravel bars, etc., or helicopter and pop-up rigs or bottom bait? Also, love the latest film.
Thank you. I think I prefer lead clip presentations because they are the most anti-tangle. You're using tubing as opposed to lead core, which is more fish friendly, as in less likely to cause a tether. But obviously, at different times, helicopters are better for presenting over debris, and inlines are the most minimal. I don't use inlines, but in certain situations, they are the best. If you're fishing solid bags, they're the best. If you're fishing on rock hard gravel spots with short braided hook links, they're the best. They just look minimal, so less visible and conspicuous to the fish. They're most impactful when the fish tightens a hook link on an inline. It's much more of an immediate whack than on a lead clip or helicopter. There's definitely a degree of play in helicopters and lead clips in comparison to inlines, but obviously it means carrying a whole bucket of different or sorted leads, so I tend to use lead clips on hard bottom most of the time these days, but it's because I'm sort of flitting around from different water to different water. If I was fishing the same water all the time and I knew I was fishing with braided rigs and bottom baits, I would use inlines. It's more the fact that I have to be versatile rather than trying to fish perfect all the time. Yeah,
cool. Oliver, Scott is the man. Love your content. Would you consider a match? This is not for me. Would you consider a match versus sipography? Also, how do you allow for different weights when casting? For example, I use a 2-ounce lead to lead around for minimal.
So sorry, ridiculous. It's too varied. Would you consider a match versus sipography?
Yeah.
That wouldn't be fair.
No. How do you allow for different weights when casting? For example, I use a 2-ounce lead to lead around for minimal, I guess he means disturbance.
Yeah. Obviously, if you're trying to keep the disturbance down to a minimum, then a light lead is a very good idea. But if you're trying to plumb a spot meticulously in a crosswind at long range, then a big lead will tighten your line out better and be more accurate and more consistent. So, it's a question that has lots of variables.
Yeah. So look. David Lloyd, Darrell, what is the best bit of watercraft advice you could give me for fishing deep water in winter? What are you looking for?
Boshers. Boshers. One of the best things about deep lakes is that they can be really difficult in the spring because the fish are high in the water, not touching bottom. But in the winter, not always, but in the winter, they can quite often be caught deep. They can quite often be quite localised, as in all together. And And once you locate where they are, deep lakes are very rare. Really deep lakes are very rarely weedy because the light doesn't penetrate all the way to the bottom. So when you find fish in open water, over deep water, in the winter, presentation can be very easy. So you haven't got to look for spots. Just put the rig exactly where they are, and sometimes that's enough.
Very good advice, Carlos. I'm not going to even attempt to speak Spanish, but he's Spanish and he started to speak Spanish. So I'm not going to read that. It says hola.
Hola.
Is it possible? Oh no, he's already done this one. Possible to fish adjustable zigs with fluorocarbon mainline. He tricked me by putting Spanish at the start of the question, and the other one didn't have Spanish, so I thought it was a different question.
Okay.
Anyway, we've done that one.
Okay.
Jonathan, if you could design a lake, what would it look like? How big and what features?
Ooh.
That's a very good question.
It would be everything. It would be massive. It would be deep. It would be shallow. It'd have vast features, bars, but mainly like massive. I like carp houses. Carp houses are my favourite. Like massive overhanging willows, massive dense reed beds, lily beds, all of that. And they'd be absolutely heaving with them.
Yeah. Cookie Sun. Evening, lads. What's your thoughts on pop-ups throughout darkness? I remember both yourself and Simon Scott referring to it in a podcast previously.
For me, a pop-up, its greatest asset is also its greatest downfall. So by standing up off the bottom, it's most obvious, draws the carp attention, but at the same time, it's most obviously the hook bait. So for precious carp, it can be ignored. I've been like carp fishing a lot. I didn't start carp fishing when I was 17, 18. I started when I was really young, but I've fished a lot since I was 16, like probably 100 nights a year or more on average, a lot. And I've caught thousands of carp on single pop-ups in a day. I've caught very few on single pop-ups at night. Conversely, I haven't caught as many fish on zig rigs with black foam. But for ratio of time in the water to runs in the night, single hook baits for me in my whole life, single pop-ups at night have produced probably less than 10 carp in all of my life, whereas I've caught untold carp on single pieces of unflavoured black foam at night. So what that tells me is that the fish can see a hook bait silhouetted against the surface, which makes me think that they come up onto them rather than down onto them. And conversely, when a fish is looking at the lake bed, he can't see anything in the dark because it's dark. He can't. There's nothing to picture it against. In my mind, obviously, some colours might be more visible in the dark. I've caught some on squid goo pop-ups. We've done the big carp story today and talked about catching a fish in 30 feet of water on a single squid goo pop-up in the dark, which is one of the few times that I have caught on single pop-ups. But for me, pop-ups work in the dark best with bait round because the fish just come across them. If you look at our aquarium film, I was fishing pop-ups over tightly baited areas and catching plenty at night. But yeah, the chances of a fish locating a single pop-up in the dark, for me, it can be done, not impossible, but it's definitely not an effective method.
Cool. Cookie Sun, I haven't got your real name. I might be able to search for you. That's your nickname. So if you can just send me an email and I will just verify your account and we will send you some pop-ups.
Trebby, yeah.
Adam Walsh, what's your favourite takeaway on the bank?
Probably a curry. I prefer Indian to Chinese. What about you?
I'm both.
Yeah.
Chinese and Indian. If I had a choice, I'd probably go Indian.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, probably. Matthew Parr, when do you use braid instead of mono and why? And when you use braid, what diameter breaking strain would you use?
Again, this is a question that has 1,000,001 variables. For the most part, for casting in not too weedy fishing, I fish with 12-pound Core de Contour. It's one of my favourite lines. Really fast sinking, reduced stretch, great for feeling lead down, stronger than its diameter would suggest compared to monofilament, in my opinion. When I've got to cast quite far with mono only venues, I tend to use tapered line, either the cord long cast or the subline. When I'm fishing extreme range at Orient, I quite often use a sub braid. I like the sub braid. I like the sub braid a lot, but a lot of venues don't allow braid. I think the braid sinks really good, brilliant for accurate rig placement, reduced stretch, sinking, but it does stand out a little bit. And when I've fished at absolutely full tilt mega range, then I've used really fine braids like whiplash and stuff. But yes, it's if you're fishing a venue regularly and you know what the sort of fishing that you will be doing the most consistently, then I pick the material that suits the situation the best. You know, the truth is I use all sorts. I've got multiple spare spools, and I do chop and change because I fish so many different waters. Most of you will be fishing the same 2 or 3 venues throughout the year, and you might find one line that suits all of them. Whereas I'm fishing probably 20 different venues a year or more. I have to have all bases covered.
Cool. We've got one from James Burke. How would you fish your line 100 yards plus in around 9 foot of water? Worried line is cutting off the swim and last few feet of the off the deck, but then concerned about indication.
Indication is one of the things I worry about least. If the fish is hooked, you're going to find out about it pretty quickly anyway, I feel. And line lay is only as good as your situation. It's very situation dependent. You know, you could have a perfectly flat bottom between you and your spot, and then at the last minute there could be a patch of weed that you just cast behind, and you found a nice clear spot at the back of it, but your line would be down on the bottom, up over the weed bed, and no matter what you do at your end, it's still going to be zinging off the top of that weed bed directly down to your spot. So I do try and fish slack most of the time, unless I feel there's a negative reason. If fishing to snags and I think it's going to give the fish a head start to get into them, or if I think that there's stuff on the bottom that my line's better off taut above than to get caught in, then that's another reason to fish tight lines. If there's a massive amount of undertow, then I might fish tight lines. But if I can get it down out the way, then I can only see that as a positive. And I'm not like bite indication is one of the least important things a lot of the time to me. Like for an example, when I was fishing the Essex Manor, it's like a bathtub. I'd be fishing 30 to 40 yards out with no bobbins on, with the line completely slack, like laying down the bottom all the way to the spot. People used to say to me, "What happens if you get a drop back?" I said, "Well, the fish will swim into the edge, and then it'll have to turn left or right. And when it turns left or right, eventually the line's going to tighten up." Which is, it's like an extreme saying of that, and most of the time there's a degree of tension from your line on the bottom, so as the fish picks up, whether it's slack when it's slack at your end, the line's in the bottom and the fish will go against the tension of the line being stuck in the bottom, and I think it's quite unlikely that you get drop backs even with slack lines.
Cool. We'll do a few more, then we'll do the draw.
Oh, get the draw for the Fox Frontier.
Yeah, for the Fox Bivvy. Jonathan has asked, what is your go-to zig line?
I've been using just recently the Cruiser, which is the Corda floater line in 8 pound. Spooner put me onto it, and one of the things that I like most of all about it, because I'm using the zig liners rather than tying hairs, I'm tying directly to the eye of the hook. And with a lot of lines, when you tie to the eye of the hook, it's very easy to get a big kink just above the eye of the hook that when you're using a zig looks really ugly. So I've found that this Cruiser with a 4-turn grinner, it seems very easy to tie it without kinking it or putting a curl in it, and it's strong. That 8 pound Cruiser, like a lot of lines are rated in different ways. So for me, I don't really look at the breaking strain. I look at the diameter, because a breaking strain is what the company has labelled it as, whereas the diameter is for real. I would look at my zig line is usually around 0.28. That's the diameter that I look for, 0.28 of a mil. I would strongly recommend that Cruiser. It's cheap. You get 100 metres, 150 metres on the spool, and it's really good.
Cool. Jamie Jones. Fishing a small 1.5 acre lake, there is approximately 15 fish around the 30 mark, a few just under. They have always been caught on snowman rigs. Some people fish longer hair, blowback rigs. What do you reckon?
Read it again, sorry.
Fishing a small lake, 1.5 acre lake. There is approximately 15 fish around the 30 mark. They have always been caught on snowman rig.
Sounds like a nice lake.
Yeah. Some people fish long hair blowback rigs. What
Right.
do you reckon?
Yeah, I'm proper against long hairs. Just don't think they offer anything at all. Like nothing. There's not a situation where I think old hairs are for old hands. You know, that's very old techers from back in the day. The longer the piece of rope that you give the fish, the more time they have to realise that they've made a mistake and eject the rig. In some situations, quite rarely, I think the fish hook themselves trying to spit the rig out. But what you're really trying to achieve is the fish to pick up the rig and get hooked as soon as possible. So it literally breathes in the rig, moves a fraction, hook link tightens, hook penetrate or pricks, causes the carp to panic. So, you know, if you fish the rig too short with a long hair, you risk hooking them before the hook's got fully into the mouth. If you fish too long, you risk them spitting it out. So you're looking for that. There's a reason why there's a normal rig length, because it's a good one. You know, like a rig between 5 and 9 inches is a very good length, depending on the size of bait. You know, if you've got small bait, short hair, small hook, short rig. You know, if you've got a slightly bigger bait, you know, the bigger bait, you need more time for the hook to go in, I feel, for a bigger fish, you know, so it's slightly longer rig for bigger baits, smaller, slightly shorter rig for smaller baits. And regards to your lake having 15-30, it's been 1.5 acres, I'm guessing it's very pressured, you know, any lake, a small lake like that with big carp, and the fish will be very, very tuned into angling pressure. So yeah, I would be looking to fish subtle, and cute, you know, rather than crude.
Cool. Let's do this one and we'll do the draw. So we've got Jack Mycroft. Evening, lads. Any advice on avoiding hook pulls? Currently using a 7.5 inch blowback rig with a size 6 wide gape on a lead clip and seem to be pulling out a lot of fish recently. Without
seeing it, it'd be very hard for me to say. You know, I'd need to be able to see it to pick holes in it. But if you have a little look at our Pecker's Tech section about the Combi multi-rig, one of the best hook to land ratio. I've seen a lot of people send me messages on Instagram of their versions of my rig, and you'd be surprised how many people want to put their slant on it. And if you put your slant on it, it's not the same. You know, by all means do it, but I can't tell you how it's going to perform without seeing it. That version of the Combi multi-rig that we've demonstrated in the Pecker's Techers video, you know, you'll see in the Farlow's session video, fishing weedy situation, 21 takes, 21 fish, I believe. And when I was using the stiff hinge rig at the aquarium, I think I lost one fish out of about 25 runs. Yeah, I'm absolutely sold on my rigs at the moment. You know, I've never been as happy with my presentations as that I am now. I'm fishing more than ever before, fishing regularly with the same thing. I've made the adjustments to certain things to get them to work as well as they can. So yeah, honestly, try that Combi multi-rig or the stiff hinge the stiff hinge. I don't think we've not done the Techers on that,
no.
But it's on the Thinking Tackle with me and Oscar at Cables Lake on YouTube, so you can see that one on YouTube. It's very simple, stiff hinge rig or that Combi multi-rig, both brilliant.
Cool. Let's just do this last one from David. When booking France, would you always be looking for a full moon during your trip? Last full moon, I caught my first ever catfish out of burners.
You go fishing when you can, you know. But if you can pick and you can choose, my favourite way to do it is to fish up to the full moon so that I leave the day after the full moon. You know, I personally feel that the days I've done better fishing in the lead up to the full moon and on the full moon. And I like the way that if your session's building towards the full moon, you're baiting, you're fine-tuning your location, and then you're set well for the night, you know. But if you arrive on the full moon, you don't know what you're doing, do you? It's the first night on the water. So if you can, try and have a full moon or new moon at the back end of your session. I know it's difficult on these French commercials because they're Saturday to Saturday, and you can't always do it. But yeah, if I have the opportunity, I try and leave the day after the full moon so that I've had a nice run up into it, and that's my favourite.
Yeah, cool. Right. So let's just have a quick refresh. On the community page. So those of you who have just joined or missed this at the start, if you're not aware, on the app, look at Darrell. On the app, there is a community page. If you post a picture, by the end of every month, you'll be in a draw to win a £50 Johnson Ross voucher, which you can spend on whatever you like. You can put it towards the cost of something. I know that last month's winner put it towards the cost of a bivvy. So very good way of using the voucher. So all you have to do, like I say, is put a picture once a month. You don't have to keep putting pictures on. As long as you put it up every month, by the end of the month, you'll be in the draw, which we do during the CarpFix Live. We did one earlier, and the winner was Josh Capelin. So Josh, we will get in touch with you, and you will get a £50 voucher. Then in a year's time, we will put everyone's name in a hat, and we'll do a draw for a £100 voucher. So if you don't win the £50 voucher every month, then you've got a chance to win the £100 voucher. And as you can see here, we've actually had some come in whilst we've been live.
Cool.
Some nice pictures there. I'd sit there sometimes just looking through because I get a notification when they come up.
Oh,
so
that's a nice one.
yeah,
What is that?
Adam Draper, the Bullet. Yeah, there's some really nice fish on here.
Get on here.
Yeah.
Might be some venues we can go to.
Yeah, there's some Dan and Lexi, they fish corcuts a lot.
Yeah.
There's some really nice fish. I'm just going to switch this over to the other page. So just tell everyone what the draw is for.
Okay, so this month's free prize draw, exclusive to our members, is a Fox, a limited edition Fox Frontiera camo bivvy with peak.
Yeah, so you get a peak with it.
Yeah, so it's got all the gubbins, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Worth over £700.
Yeah. Yeah, so
you've got a Fox bivvy, haven't you?
Yeah, not this camo one.
But you've got a Frontiera.
I'd like a camo.
Yeah, but maybe we'll send them your one then.
yeah, we should have just said it wasn't a camo one. But yeah, so I'm going to do the drawing here. Those of you that are new here, we're going to just press the tap to draw on my phone, and it'll just pick someone's name out. And next week, at some point, you will get a Fox bivvy delivered to your house.
Nice.
Ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. Philip Thornton. Like the chocolate. Thornton's
Congratulations,
chocolates.
Philip, if you're watching live, and if you're not, I'm sure you're going to either watch in the rerun or just receive a little email from Scotty.
Yes, I will. I've made a note of your name, so you've just won yourself a nice £700 bivvy from Fox. Not bad.
Not bad at all.
So yeah, we'll. I've got a few ideas for next month's or this next coming month's prize. So we'll keep your eyes out on social media. We will put something out there so you know what is up for grabs. I'm sure it'll be a decent prize. We usually do pretty good ones every month. Pecky is off to Disneyland.
Yeah, I'm going to Disneyland this week for my wife's birthday. She's addicted to theme parks and stuff like that. And then I'm off on the Corda underwater shoot to Gigantica. So, yeah, I've got a couple of weeks in France. Just getting into Bayswater as well. Bayswater have been going really well. We'd have those films are going to come soon. Yeah. But yeah, I'm going to have a little pause on Bayswater. Just I was getting the measure. I felt like I was getting the measure of it, but we've all got to go to work sometime.
Yeah.
It's one of those things.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got lots of shoots coming up, lots of really good films coming out. We've got the Bayswater films coming out. It's probably 3 of those because the first session you caught quite a few, and then the other 2 you had a couple.
Yeah, no, there's definitely 3 films there, I think.
Yeah, so we'll put those out as soon as we can get them edited. We've obviously got the Spain film in Oriana.
When's that coming?
So that will be within the next month.
Yeah,
at some point.
There's a big one in there.
Yeah, and we've got a big carp story which was recorded today. Moz's vlog next week. And we've got another film with Rob. So we've got lots coming, lots to look forward to. We're going out filming as well in the next couple of weeks. So yes, lots going on.
Cool. Well, thanks for joining us this evening, and hopefully you'll join us next time. Thank you very much.
See you soon.